boy. Oh no, we different style with delivery. I don't have no equivalent, different predicament. Every day a different problem. Yes, yes, yes. Good afternoon. Welcome to Game Changers. Roy Wills here, your host. Today I have a very special guest, my longtime friend and basketball buddy that I used to play with when I lived in Houston, Roger Williams, who is now a Wi-Fi and blockchain consultant in the technology space. Wanted to spend some time today with him. I will allow him to introduce himself without any further ado. Roger, let me pass it over to you so I can make sure you give yourself the full introduction and allow our audience to hear a little bit about you and what you've been doing.
Yeah, so I'm Roger Williams. I'm the CEO of the Mobile Blockchain Solutions and the Li-Fi Hub. At the Li-Fi Hub, what we do is we're currently educating people on what Li-Fi is, Li-Fi technology and blockchain, and how blockchain, Li-Fi, and just how all this new digital technology is going to come together to create smart cities, and just to give people more access to connectivity. Right. So yeah, that's the field I'm in. Kind of really enjoying the space, watching the ecosystem advance, and I would love more people, to just do their research on what Li-Fi is getting ready to do in the space.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that. But before we get deep into that, because that's a big, broad subject and a lot for us to talk about on that, let's talk a little bit about your background. Where you're from, where you grew up, so the audience knows a little bit about you and kind of your path to where you're at now. Let's start there, Roger.
So background origin, Jamaica, man. Grew up in Jamaica till I was 9. Came to the United States, whole different culture, different ecosystem, different, just atmosphere, opportunities abundantly. And then we came to Houston, and just grew up in this Houston space, understanding, just learning more about, the technology space and sports. And Houston's a beautiful city, man. A lot of diversity, a lot of opportunity for people, real cool place. And that's, this is where I met Roy, down here in Texas, playing basketball at the Fondy, where all the legends played at. Roy was a legend, legend in the space.
Hey, we had some good runs together, man. We had some good runs together. I appreciate you joining me today and kind of giving, a little bit of your insight in this technology space to talk about where we're at now, where you see us can potentially going with some of these newer technologies, whether it be it blockchain, Li-Fi. We can talk about that. So let's start. Give me a little overview of your business and the problem that it aims to solve. How about we start there?
Sure. So let's just take it back, man. I was working in corporate America. I was working at oil and gas. I was working in BP, Exxon. Worked at some big ones, Mercedes Benz. I was doing SAP at the time because initially, I mean, I never wanted to do technology. I just wanted to play sports. But then I didn't see a future making it to the NBA. That wasn't up my projected path. But I always wanted to stay with sports. So initially, I jumped into technology and sports. And when I was working at Spectra Energy at the time, which is a natural gas company doing technology SAP implementations, I remember like I was about to get laid off. I remember layoffs were coming. It was crazy, man. It was a crazy time, 2017, and I remember like my friend called me and he told me about blockchain first. He told me about Bitcoin. This was like 2015. He told him 14. He called me. He's like, "Hey, take some of your money and buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin's $300." And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, man, that's more than some Jordans. I'm not buying that, man. $300. I didn't know what it was going to do. So I remember him telling me, he's a great friend of mine named Ron Blanchett. And he was like, so I just kind of ignored him. So then he called me. That was like in like March. So then I think it was September. And he called me. He's like, man, Bitcoin's $700. I was like, man, I'm really not going to buy it now. Like $700? Like, I don't even know what this is going to do. And I remember this voice telling me like I was going to get laid off, inner voice. So I needed to start like just preparing myself for layoffs. And the year prior to that, like I had went out to lunch with a friend of mine, and I was out there. I was just living a unintentional life. And I went to lunch with a friend, and he was like, man, I got, 200K in my 401. And I was like, damn, like this boy got two. I didn't want to tell nobody I hadn't put nothing in my 401K. I was just devastated after that conversation.
Right.
I remember just thinking to myself, like, man, I'm just living this life, just blowing my money. I ain't got nothing in my 401. Like, this is crazy.
Kind of reset to your priorities right there.
Yeah, yeah. So then I remember him like this. The voice was like, "It's not too late. Just go ahead and just do." Because they had like a 6% match. So I did the 6% match, and then when I got laid off, I had like 30K in my freaking like 401K. So that day I got laid off, I remember like it was crazy. Like the phones were ringing, and like every time you hear somebody just bust out crying, like you like, oh shit, this is crazy. Like people crying at the job.
Yeah.
So I remember it was like after lunch, and I'm chilling at my desk, and then my phone rings, and everybody looks at me, and they all just kind of sit up in their seat and act like they was working. And I was like, hey man, I gotta go. And everybody was like, damn, they start tripping. We crunch. So I go downstairs. They told me I had I had in my 401K, and my pen. They gave me like I forgot what that's called when it severance, and then I just went straight to Fry's. I bought a laptop. I called my boy who told me about crypto, and I took everything in my 401K and bought Bitcoin in 2017. I bought a bunch of Bitcoins. I took all 30K and bought all Bitcoins. 2 months later, I'm sitting on 250K in like 2 months.
Wow.
And then by the end of that year, I'm sitting on like 800K. So I had made more money in 6 months than I had made in the 5 years at my job. And I didn't have to deal with none of the politics and everything. And I told myself, I'm not going back in that space. I'm gonna learn how to, this technology thing and move forward with that. So that's really what took me. And then that blockchain took me into life, and I'll tell you more about that.
So that in itself was the catalyst that showed you that there were opportunities out there that you did not need to be in a traditional space to earn money and to kind of create this pathway or this lifestyle that you really felt like you were intended for without going through traditional corporate America, correct?
Absolutely. It was a game changer for me. And really was the reason why it was a game changer because I didn't know people could make money like this, but I also felt like I had like a special synergy because some of the things I would do, I would just zone out. Like once I lost my job, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I would just open up my laptop and I go straight to CoinMarketCap and I started studying it was Bitcoin, but it was more than just Bitcoin. Like there's so many big companies that are developing new intellectual projects behind these tokens. People chase the money, but you really don't chase the money. Chase the technology and understand and comprehend what these projects are doing. They got some powerful projects like IOTA, Ethereum, Hedera, Tron. Like all these companies were just killing it with these technology projects. They were making like billions of dollars in like 6 months.
100%. I always tell people don't chase the what, chase the why and the how.
Absolutely. What you're
That's
passionate about. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
spot on, 100%. So that's some really good insights around, where you started in your, what kind of got you in this mindset of entrepreneurship. Let's talk a little bit about your early challenges getting into, your business, kind of setting that up, kind of creating an audience. Let's talk about that.
So man, it was crazy. So I jumped in the blockchain. Like I'm like, okay. So I hit up a few friends of mine. I was like, hey, I'm starting a blockchain company. It was like, hey, I'm jumping. They saw what I did with Tron and all that money. It was like, bro, whatever you do, we're following. So I mean, man, I had some blessings, but where I knew so many people, and it just in life from what I did. So one of my friends, he was like, hey, man, I'm gonna take you out to Tulsa, Oklahoma. They got this guy called the Black Elon Musk. So we go down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that was the first time I ever seen anything like that, man. This dude, he had created his own social networking platform. He had all these tech Indian people he had over 100 people working on it, working on coding his networking platform. He had like a whole compound. He had like a 3D printer that he had gotten from NASA. He had everything, man. The way he spoke, his vocabulary was just so different. I never seen nobody like this. He was talking about like, the Genesis, which is the initial start of the blockchain. He was breaking down so many different analogies to me I've never heard in life. So when I saw that just blew me away. Yeah. And I was like, man, I never seen people like that around my ecosystem. And I guess it's because I was mostly involved in basketball, but I didn't know that world existed. So anyways, I was starting to get projects. I was working with like this one girl that worked she was in Destiny Child. What is her name? Anyway, Latoya. It wasn't Latoya Lucky, but she was in Destiny Child before Destiny Child started. So
natives.
Yeah, so she wanted me to develop her blockchain project. So I was like, we started with her, and she was going to introduce me to Allo Black. But then when she, and so every time people would come to me, they wanted the projects to develop, but when they heard the pricing, they would be like, and then they were unsure because the regulatory laws were coming down. So it started to be a kind of like a hindrance where everybody's excited about blockchain, but nobody. And then we had one project with what's the guy? Ice Cube. It was Ice Cube. What was they called? Public Enemy, not Public NWA. So I had met with a group that they had done the movie NWA movie, and they wanted to get ready for the hip hop 50th anniversary, and so they were doing NFTs at the time, and they wanted us to help them build their NFT community for the big hip hop. The hip hop 50th anniversary. And they wanted us to do some stuff with like Eazy-E, Snoop, Ice Cube, all this. And they had planned on just building this whole metaverse ecosystem for hip hop. And then that didn't go through. It was always just some kind of a hiccup. Yeah. And so the same guy that introduced us to all these people, he introduced me to this older guy, and he jumped on the phone and he was like, hey, man, I'm working on this thing called Li-Fi. So I'm like, what the hell is Li-Fi? So then I started doing my research on Li-Fi, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. So we're coming out the pandemic, and what happened was, as I'm coming out the pandemic, I remember Zoom kept crashing. All these different websites were crashing during the pandemic, and I always thought it was Zoom, and I thought it was all the platforms that were crashing because they were slow. Mm-hmm. And as more and more I started doing my research, it wasn't the platforms was crashing; it was the internet's crashing. The internet was crashing because it was too dense.
Not enough bandwidth. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the spectrum it was too dense to carry so many different applications and software. Mm-hmm. So what happened is once you start getting so many people, just like if you go to a concert and you have your cell phone, and if you got over 10,000 people all in that area, everybody's phone, the Wi-Fi is going to crash. You're not going to be able to use your phone.
Yeah, that side is oversaturated at that point. Right. And the connections are going to be harder to make.
Absolutely. So then I started connecting the dots. Oh shit! Like that, the pandemic is the research that was coming out. The pandemic, they were doing so much research. People don't even realize how many research papers were done on the elements of the human being. Mm-hmm. And I was like, when I started reading the research reports, the only thing that they knew they needed to do this because this was kind of a test for the digital ecosystem coming in. So you have to test it and then come back with your elements to make adjustments. Absolutely. And so once I realized, I started studying Li-Fi. Li-Fi is going to be the next movement away to giving us a better, faster, secure internet that are right now the U.S. government's using, the French government military is using it, the Navy, so many, all our government officials are using Li-Fi right now because it's it's more encrypted, it's much more secure, it's much more faster, and it's a much more healthier internet.
Absolutely. So let's touch on that a little bit. So, first of all, tell the audience and myself what does Li-Fi start for? Is that just you know?
So to take it to the most elementary format, Li-Fi is light internet, and it comes from the light fixtures in your light. So opposing to the current like situation where you have all these cords, connected to the router and everything like that, Li-Fi is light internet coming. So you have a receiver and a transmitter that's transmitting data back and forth between the lights. So you really all you gotta do is turn on your light, and your internet's gonna come through your light. And you have to use LED light bulbs. So right now, before the pandemic hit, a lot of people don't know this, but all your street lights were changed out to LED light bulbs throughout the whole country. And that's to really also bring in the autonomization of autonomous cars. Li-Fi they'll be having Li-Fi in your lights to help cars communicate and send data back and forth.
So what you're saying is, instead of using the traditional internet and the waves that travel carrying potential radiation and those types of things, it will now be used through a light communication. So that spectrum is actually sending that data back and forth using
Absolutely.
actual light.
Absolutely. And it's a broader spectrum. I think it's 1,000 times bigger. The spectrum's 1,000 times bigger than Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Right. And the problem with Wi-Fi is the radio frequency. So a lot of people don't understand how deadly radio frequency is. Even like there's things on your phone that tells you like not to put your phone to your ear. Like your iPhone, if you dig into your iPhone, it tells you that it has the worst radio frequency possible. And a lot of people are getting cancer from these radio frequencies that they're using on their phone. But you're also to educate people. If you have routers in your house, you should never have. If you have kids, your routers, or just period, not even if you don't have kids, your router should never be in any room you sleep in, any rooms your kid. Your router should always be in some kind of a closet or a closed off area where you can block off the radio frequency, because you're getting hit with so many jolts of radio frequency. Like in Europe, schools, kids ages under 3, they're not allowed to have Wi-Fi in the schools. That's how deadly it is. But here, people don't understand that because we don't really understand and we don't know about Li-Fi technology.
Yeah, there are different levers and drivers in the U.S. that we focus on, such as profit, obviously, that they're more concerned about safety in other places than in U.S. I mean, obviously, it's an evolving technology. I mean, I appreciate you explaining the difference between, Li-Fi and Wi-Fi, and that's helpful. So let's I guess move forward and talk a little bit about, your technology development and working with with the first person that you started talking to, how that relationship evolved, and how you got to where you're at now as far as your own company, whether it's it's just the technology, is it actual devices, those types of things, and where Li-Fi is now from a trajectory standpoint in an adoption within the U.S. And other markets.
Sure. So we jumped into the Li-Fi thing with this guy. Our initial goal was to hit the rural areas of the United States and try to connect as many people in the rural areas to test, because what we thought was, if we jumped into the rural areas and we started connected the unconnected, then once we started building that marketplace, then we can jump into the city and attack and then go head to head with the big boys. Because obviously, with Li-Fi and Wi-Fi, like Wi-Fi has way more money right now, and there's so much money invested in 5G and 4G, all these different, technologies that are coming out. The next goal is to go 6G. And so, what we did was we were going to actually go into like small towns, put up, because we had actually towers. We had access to towers, that the same towers like Verizon's and AT&T had, because one of our business partners had towers. And so what we were going to do is go into these towns, start, putting in the Li-Fi, and then you know, connecting users that way so we can start creating mass adoptions. But as things started to go, uh, you hear like we were getting people that were so interested in the technology, but everybody acts like they're serious. But when it comes down to it, you know, sometimes it's like just a lot of gas coming out the
Yeah.
pipes when it comes to, you know, just kind of moving forward. And
Yeah.
so,
I mean, these are big, significant shifts. I mean, if you look at the adoption of the electric vehicle, I mean, it's nowhere near where we thought it would be, 2 years ago when things started to get better. I think there's still some hesitancy because folks are used to the traditional systems and just electric. I mean, gas versus electric. So it's the same thing when it comes to your technology. That adoption is gonna take some time. It's gonna take some confidence. It's gonna take some use cases. So, but I guess from a technical standpoint, let's take a step back. So you're saying that you have towers, or you have potentially access to existing towers like AT&T, Verizon. So your technology would be on top of those and submit signals just like how they would their radio signals for the cell phones. But
absolutely.
how does your signals differ? I mean, is it the same process or is it different? How does
Well, so jumping into that. So when I jumped into it, I was also misinformed by a lot of things. The fiber is the most important element to any cable or any kind of internet. Fiber, nothing beats fiber right now. And so the towers is always going to be a secondhand option because it's not, you know, as strong as fiber. But as time goes by, light becomes more condensed and we're able to shoot laser, there may be some big competition in the next 5 years. But Li-Fi really is more of an internal thing than it is an external thing,
okay?
right? And the reason why is because it's light, and this is the secure part of it is once light is in between walls, it's hard to kind of um, to penetrate it. Unlike your regular Wi-Fi routers, when you plug in your routers and you put in your password, it's easier to be hacked. But in order for you to hack Wi-Fi, you got to be inside the house, right?
Got it.
Wi-Fi, I can hack you from outside the house. Wi-Fi, because it's light doesn't penetrate through walls, so you have a much more secure foundation. Being that now you eliminate the external people on the outside hacking you, and the hack has to be done on the inside, right?
Got
So
it.
it's more of an internal thing, and what it does is it's going to speed up our internet so much because their whole objective right now is to get us up to 10 gigabytes per person of speed. That's their because another thing I'll show you, like before pandemic hit and during the pandemic, one of the big things is that they're trying to do is increase like VR and AR,
Mhm.
right? So you had the glasses, everybody was wearing the glasses from the PlayStation 5, but people were getting sick. The reason why they were getting sick is not because it wasn't working, it was because it's too slow. So when the internet is too slow, you get motion sickness when you put it on. So once we speed up that internet, now you're going to have a better AR, VR um, experience. And now you're going to start seeing these medical companies that are doing surgeries and all these big manufacturers that have sensors in there that want to send data back and forth.
Yeah.
That's what's going to bring us into our new age of Internet of Things.
Yeah. So this is really significant because you have the opportunity to tap into that device space from a medical standpoint. Obviously, I'm in healthcare technology, so anytime you can speed up the data or access to data to help a process, you're creating a significant value.
Yeah,
So
and then the other part to it is most hospitals they can't use Wi-Fi in there because the radio frequency is so deadly
that's
that it is going to cause issues. So this is where Wi-Fi is going to be very parallel for hospitals as well. Right?
absolutely, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it sounds like a really good industry and a really great technology. So let's talk a little bit about your market strategy. So, how did you identify your target market? I mean, you talked a little bit about starting in rural areas. Is that still your strategy, or is it kind of a little bit of wait and see right now to see what happens with some of the with the existing technologies?
Well, so I've been, I really took a deep dive into the space, and I started reaching out to all the major scientists in the space, throughout the whole world on LinkedIn. Um, I started creating my own Li-Fi community, putting content up. Um, Next thing you know, 6 months later, I'm invited to the Li-Fi conference, and I'm a speaker. I'm speaking with the scientists and all these huge people in the space. That blew my mind. I didn't really, realize that people were paying attention. But I really just kind of had changed my life and just blocked out everything and just really just took a deep dive into the space. And then once I started to understand what was going on to the space, now more information started to flow, and I was able to start seeing all the holes in the ecosystem that needed being filled. Um, an article came out the other day. It's so funny. Before this article came out, I literally reached out to my attorney. It's about last year or a year before that. I said, man, this is going to be huge because we came out with the wireless headphones, and I knew the wireless headphones are not good for you because of the radio frequency. So I still to this day use the wired headphones. And so it dawned on me like, hey man, I need to create some Li-Fi headphones. And I called my attorney. I was like, yo, is there a patent on this? And he said, no. And man, it's one of my biggest regrets because now Apple just came out about 2-3 weeks ago saying they're creating Li-Fi headphones,
Wow.
right? So this is mass adoption. Once these Li-Fi headphones come out, this is going to be a game changer for Li-Fi because now people are going to start to become more aware, and really just I think awareness is going to bring forth opportunity and creativity, right? In India, it's so funny, like all over the world. When I reach out to the Indians and the Pakistanians, they're way digged into Li-Fi. They're the ones that's developing the products over there. They're over there. Like one of the biggest is in Delhi, India. One of the biggest Li-Fi schools is in India, and the other biggest one is in the Netherlands. That's where Harold Haas, who is the creator of the word, or they say he's the creator of Li-Fi.
So
He's the one, right? Yes, Harold Haas, and he's huge and inspirational. He did a TED Talks on Li-Fi, and after watching his TED Talks and seeing what it was going to do, this is what inspired me. But what I realized that there was a lack of education. I knew if I can bridge the gap and be the light to Li-Fi, I know that I'd be intricate part and being one of the first Black people in the space because I didn't see I don't see any of us in there. So that's what really was dope for me, that I was one of the very first Black Li-Fi speakers at the conference.
That's phenomenal. So Roger, it brings me to my next question. From an exposure standpoint, how would you recommend people getting to know more about Li-Fi, to work with organizations that are, such as yours, to create opportunities and potential, synergies around this new technology and kind of trying to get it towards adoption?
So on LinkedIn currently right now, I have it's called the Li-Fi Hub. That's one of my companies, and the goal of the Li-Fi Hub is to educate and bring awareness about Li-Fi, but not only about Li-Fi, but the products and companies out there that are in the ecosystem, right? There's so many companies that are doing phenomenal things. I've worked with quite a few of these guys on the blockchain side because I do blockchain, and they're intrigued about how we can integrate blockchain and Li-Fi to add an additive layer of security to Li-Fi. I mean to the blockchain, to Li-Fi and the blockchain, and be able to if you understand what the blockchain is a big word, but let's just dumb it down. It's really just a ledger that stores information, and so that can't be erased. And that's what happened to a lot of history, is the fact that we didn't have ledgers that held long history of data. So a lot of times history could be altered because there is no documentation of these long histories. So what the blockchain is able to do is now, unlike ever before, is to document the true data that's coming in over a long periods of time.
Got it. No, that's phenomenal. I think that's very important, especially where we're at in our evolution from a technology standpoint. So, how do you see this technology or industry evolving over the next few years? I guess kind of as we're getting towards the end of the podcast, just kind of wanted to touch on that and kind of talk a little bit about, how others can get into this technology and kind of, maybe soak some of that up.
So if you've been paying attention, I don't know if most people have, but the government, just the United States, but this is a worldwide rollout, and I don't know if people have been noticing, but even the United States last year they dropped $40 billion on fiber rollouts.
Hmm.
They're trying to increase the connectivity and give people in the United States a better connectivity. Only 30% of the world is connected to the internet. You got 7 billion people. Only 30% of the world is connected. What's the first thing you do when you get off a plane into the other country? What's the first thing everybody wants to do? They want to get connected,
Of course.
right? So to me, at first, I went on the blockchain, but I was like, blockchain is cool, but it goes up and down. But you only what everybody gonna pay their internet bill. Everybody gonna pay their phone bill. They want to get connected. People, and so that 40 billion, that blew my mind. Like, damn, if they drop 40 billion, what are they trying to? How much they gonna make off that 40 billion? Texas alone got 1.5 billion, right, for fiber rollout. So if you're investing 40 billion in the United States, I think Dubai, Abu Dhabi did 100 billion,
Wow.
right? So, when you start looking at all these countries this wasn't just a United States rollout for connectivity, it was a worldwide rollout for connectivity, right? And guess what? Your kids are not going to be, we had wallets. Our kids in the future are using digital wallets. So as you start to see everything is going digital, this is why Li-Fi is going to be the connecting piece, because it has a better connectivity than Wi-Fi. I'm not saying right now they're going to work hand in hand, but in about 2-3 years, with the growth of Li-Fi, we're going to see a advancement and a lot of people using Li-Fi technology in the next 5 years. It'll be a hundred, I'll say $1 trillion industry.
Hey, I certainly can see that based on what you're saying. I think there's significant opportunity in this space. Obviously, folks like yourself, we will call upon to learn a little bit more and kind of figure out how we can get into that industry. I think, especially being an African American yourself and kind of submersing yourself into that space, I think it's phenomenal. That's why you're on this podcast. I mean, and just to kind of take a step back, this podcast is a forum that I invite people that have been a significant influence in my life that I see that are making the trajectory to change the game in a sense. So your work in this space and what you're trying to do in your industry, I consider quote unquote a game changer. So thank you for all of the information today. This has been phenomenal, my friend. I appreciate you. I know you're a busy guy and you got stuff to do. Any closing words you want to do before we shut down today?
So if you guys want to learn more on Li-Fi, I wrote a book. It's called, hopefully, I don't know if you can see this, Rel, but it's called Li-Fi, The Illuminating Future.
Yeah.
And you can find this on LinkedIn. If you go to the Li-Fi Hub, it's about a 20-page booklet. You can download it. Just go to the Li-Fi Hub, the Li-Fi Hub on LinkedIn. And yeah, and if you want to just check it out, just go ahead and read it. It's 20 pages of amazingness, and just kind of gives you a better understanding for those who are curious. And if you can't find it, just reach out to Roy. And I gave Roy a copy and asked him for a copy of it. I would love for more of everybody just to kind of, just understand where we're going with connectivity, digital wallets, digital learning, hospital, when you're doing the AR, VR hospital surgeries, they're going to be using Li-Fi to connectivity to do surgeries. All these autonomous cars, manufacturers, the Internet of Things is going to be huge for Li-Fi, and Industry 4.0 is going to be amazing for Li-Fi.
I can
And
definitely see that.
blockchain, yeah.
Absolutely, I can definitely see that. I will put the the link to the book in the chat here. Also, I'll probably post a snippet of this on LinkedIn and drop it in there as well for my community. But this has been phenomenal. Roger, I appreciate your time. Always a pleasure. Thank you for the insights today. And I just wanted to, to take this opportunity to recognize you and give you your flowers, because I think what you're doing in this space is phenomenal. And I want to see you continue and flourish. So anything that I can do to help you, I look forward to us working together and keeping the connection going, my friend.
Well, I want to give your flowers back because I'm proud of you doing this podcast. You're doing an amazing job, and I see a lot of great future for you at this, man. And before I go, I want to send a shout out to Pure Li-Fi, Signify, Harold Haas, Alacom, the Light Communications Alliance, all those people out there who are doing hard work in the ecosystem to make this happen. And I send a shout out to Roy for just giving me this opportunity to come out here and just share with you and fellowship with you guys, man. Thank you so much, Roy.
Hey, 100%. I appreciate you, Roger. Have a good one. We'll talk soon, my friend.
All right, bro.
Okay. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right.
Yes, true boy. I know we different style we delivering. I don't have no equivalent, different predicament. Every day a different problem.
Thank you. We'll close out this episode of Game Changers. Thank you for joining today. And again, like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your input, any feedback or comments. All right. Have a great weekend, guys. Take care.